Do you feel like something is missing in your life, even though in theory you lack nothing? Have you ever felt that silent, almost invisible sensation that there is a space inside you that nothing external can fill? That feeling that emerges when you're alone, far from the noise, and suddenly something within you whispers that this is not the life you truly want to live. That emptiness is not a coincidence, and it's not a weakness either. Carl Jung saw it as a deep manifestation of the soul, a message from the unconscious calling you to awaken. Many people experience it. Some cover it up with overwork, others with toxic relationships, with constant distractions, with legal or illegal drugs, with food, social media, or any other form of emotional anesthesia. But sooner or later, that inner voice returns, because it's not something you can silence entirely. No matter how far you run, you cannot escape from yourself. Jung called that inner calling the process of individuation, a central concept in all his deep psychology. What does this mean? It's the process by which a person becomes themselves, what they truly are, beyond masks, expectations, and social conditioning. It's the path of the soul to free itself from external programming and reconnect with its essence. And it is, without a doubt, one of the most important journeys a human being can undertake in life. From childhood, we are molded. We learn what we should be in order to be loved, approved, or accepted. We learn that certain emotions are not okay, that there are parts of us that must be hidden. We learn to fit in, and in doing so, we often betray ourselves. Jung called this forming the persona, that is, the social character we use to function in the world. But behind that mask is what he called the self, the true self, the deepest core of our being. That self doesn't disappear, even if we hide it. It simply waits silently. And when the outer life becomes hollow, when everything we were promised as happiness doesn't satisfy us, it's because that inner part is trying to emerge. Jung said the real conflict is not between good and evil, but between the inner truth and the lie we have learned to live. Did you know that many of the crises we go through are nothing more than the soul's pressure to awaken? Anxiety, depression, persistent sadness. Often they are not illnesses but signs. The soul rebels when it's been ignored for too long. It's not just about negative thoughts or low self-esteem. It's a spiritual disconnection. And not necessarily religious, but existential. You are disconnected from your purpose, your truth, your center. The process of individuation is not magical, nor fast. It is a courageous path, often lonely, that requires looking inward with brutal honesty. It means questioning things you've taken for granted for years. Asking yourself, for example, is this life I'm living truly mine, or is it a copy of what others expected from me? It also means confronting your shadow, that part of you that you've repressed, that embarrasses you, that you'd rather not see. But Jung was clear. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That is, it's not about chasing positive thoughts, but becoming aware of what is unconscious. That's where true transformation begins. As you progress in this process, you begin to feel different. Not necessarily happier at first, but definitely more real. And that's already an immense step forward, because in a world that rewards appearances, feeling authentic is a revolutionary act. You discover you can be at peace with yourself without needing external validation, that you don't need to be perfect to be valuable, that even your wounds are part of your power. This is where affirmations gain strength, not from empty repetition, but from connection with your truth. When an affirmation is born from the soul, it has immense power. That's why today I want you to integrate these truths as seeds of transformation within you. I accept that I'm not broken. I'm on the path to finding myself. I listen to the silent voice of my soul asking for attention. I'm not afraid to look within, because that's where my truth lives. Every uncomfortable emotion is an opportunity to discover a hidden part of myself. I give myself permission to be who I really am, not who the world expects me to be. These affirmations, if you say them with presence, can begin to reconfigure your relationship with yourself, because the key to the process of individuation is not changing who you are, but remembering who you were before the world told you who you had to be. It's a return home, not a reinvention. Think of it this way: that emptiness you feel, that lack of meaning, is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the sign that your soul is knocking on the door, that something greater is waiting for you on the other side of fear. But you must dare to open it, to look inward, to listen to what you've ignored for so long. Individuation is an act of love toward yourself. It's not selfishness, it's spiritual courage. It's choosing to stop living from what you learned out of fear and begin living from what you feel is true. If you are feeling that emptiness, don't punish yourself. Celebrate it, because it means your soul is alive, that your inner being hasn't given up, that there's a part of you that knows you came to this world to be more than a socially accepted version of yourself. You came to bloom, not to obey. And that process begins right here, right now. You don't need to know everything. You only need to take the first step. Look at yourself with truth. As you begin to look at yourself with truth, something begins to happen inside of you. A kind of sacred disorder. Old mental structures begin to falter. Certainties crumble. What once gave you security now feels hollow. You are not retreating. You are waking up. This moment of disorientation is normal. Jung called it the fertile chaos. It is the point at which the old identity no longer fits, but the new one has not yet been born. This in-between point can feel terrifying. You can no longer return to the comfort of your old version, but you also don't know who you really are. Many give up the process here. They prefer to return to their old habits, to their familiar masks, because the human soul fears the unknown. But if you manage to stay in that empty space a little longer, something incredible happens. From that inner silence, your true voice begins to emerge. Carl Jung said, "That which you resist persists. That which you accept transforms." This is one of the most powerful principles of the inner journey. If there is pain inside of you, if there are unresolved traumas, emotional wounds, or repetitive patterns, they won't simply go away by ignoring them. They only transform when you bring them to the light. And here is where another of Jung's deepest concepts enters: the shadow. The shadow is everything you have repressed, denied, or rejected about yourself. It's not just the bad. It can also include hidden talents, sensitivity, a desire for freedom, creativity, or any part of you that was once judged as inadequate. Your shadow is like a storage space for all the parts of you that you hid in order to be accepted, but by hiding them, you fragmented yourself. And the human soul cannot feel complete while any part of itself is exiled. That is why working with the shadow is essential to the process of individuation. You cannot become who you truly are if you keep hiding what you don't like to see about yourself. You can't achieve real transformation without integrating yourself. And Jung was clear: what you don't make conscious, you live as fate. That is what you don't see inside of you, you project outside. You see your shadow in others, in relationships that repeat your wounds, in external conflicts that reflect internal battles. But when you dare to look at your shadow with compassion instead of judgment, something deeply healing happens. You begin to understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you stop hating yourself. And when you stop hating yourself, you begin to love yourself from a real place, not from the mask you created to be loved. This process can be painful, yes, but it is also beautiful. Because for the first time, you begin to see yourself as a whole, not as a collection of defects and mistakes, but as a complete human being, with light and darkness, with wounds and potential. And it is in that wholeness where your power lies. True self-love is not telling yourself that you are perfect. It is also embracing yourself in the imperfect. Here are some new deep affirmations you can use as anchors during this process. My shadow is not my enemy. It is the part of me that has waited to be seen with love. I allow myself to see my truth even if it hurts, because I prefer the truth that sets me free to the lie that traps me. Every part of me deserves compassion, even the parts I don't. Yet understand, I don't reject my wounds. I honor them as part of my story. My darkness also has a purpose. It teaches me where I still need light. These affirmations should not be repeated automatically. Do it with intention. If a phrase resonates with you, hold on to it. Write it down. Feel it. Repeat it when your mind tries to return to its old patterns. Because the process of transformation requires conscious repetition. It is not a matter of one day or one reading. It is a daily practice of reconnecting with your essence. A fundamental part of individuation is also learning to distinguish your authentic voice from the voice of conditioning. For years, you have heard messages that are not yours. You are not enough. You have to please everyone. You can't fail. You have to be strong all the time. These phrases have filtered into your mind and act as an invisible prison. But you were not born with these beliefs. You absorbed them. And if you absorb them, you can also free yourself from them. Your soul did not come into the world to fulfill external expectations. Your soul came to evolve, and every pain you have gone through, every loss, every fall, has been part of that process. Carl Jung said that there is no transformation without suffering, but suffering only makes sense if it becomes consciousness. You are not suffering for suffering's sake. You are being pushed to wake up. It is time for you to begin living from the inside out, to stop seeking approval and start seeking connection, to stop asking yourself, how should I be to be liked? And ask yourself, who am I when I'm not pretending? That is true inner freedom. Authenticity is an uncomfortable path at first, but absolutely liberating in the end. At this point on the path, it's normal to feel lonely. But remember this, loneliness is not abandonment, it is preparation. The soul needs space to reorder itself. And when you dare to cross that darkness without distracting yourself, you begin to see with new eyes. You discover that you don't need 1,000 things to be happy, that your peace does not depend on anything external, that life is richer when lived from inner truth, not from external appearance. Many spend their whole lives never coming into contact with their soul. They live asleep, obedient, repeating family scripts without questioning them. But you are not many. If you are here, if you are listening to this, it is because a part of you is ready to go beyond, not to change who you are, but to meet who you have always been. Once you begin to recognize the truth of who you are, the next step is not to run toward an idealized version of yourself, but to stay with yourself in your most honest state. Jung insisted that individuation is not about becoming someone better, but about becoming who you truly are, without the embellishments of the ego, without the need to please, without the disguise of perfectionism. This path teaches you to return to yourself, to your center, but this return is not a straight path. It is a spiral. There are days when you feel clarity and strength, and others when you doubt and fall. And that is okay. Spiritual growth is not linear. What matters is not abandoning the path, because every time you choose to look at yourself, instead of running away, every time you choose to understand yourself, instead of punishing yourself, something in your soul heals. At this point in the journey, you will face a fundamental question. Am I living from my soul or from my wound? The wounds of the past not only affect how you think, they affect how you love, how you choose, how you react, even how you dream. Many times what we call realism is just an elegant way of saying, I adapted to my wounds. We stop desiring what we truly want because a part of us does not feel worthy of receiving it. And that is tragic, because what we do not give ourselves permission to desire, we do not manifest in our reality. Carl Jung explained that when the soul represses its true desires, it enters into conflict with itself. And that conflict manifests in symptoms: anxiety, chronic sadness, existential fatigue, emotional emptiness. It is not always illness that drains our energy. Many times it is a deep disconnection from our purpose. That is why it is essential to learn to distinguish between what you have been conditioned to want and what you truly want from your soul. The first option leads you to chase things that never satisfy you. The second guides you toward a meaningful life. True individuation is not about perfection, but about coherence. Feeling that what you think, what you say, and what you do are aligned. Here, the soul begins to speak louder, not with words, but with sensations, with intuitions, with an inner clarity that does not come from the logical mind, but from an ancestral wisdom that lives inside you. But to hear that voice, you need silence. You need moments of disconnection from external noise, and you need courage. Because that voice will ask you to make difficult decisions. Leave empty relationships, change direction, say no when you used to remain silent, defend yourself when you used to negate yourself. And it is at that point where loneliness transforms into the sacred, because you are no longer afraid to be alone. Now you know that in your solitude you find yourself. Now you understand that you do not need others to fill you, because you keep yourself company from truth. And from there, you begin to attract different connections. Authentic relationships, deep, without masks or power games. Because as Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemicals. If there is a reaction, both are transformed. When you change, your world changes. Not because the external reality magically obeys your desires, but because your perception transforms. You no longer settle for the superficial. You no longer seek love to calm your emptiness, but to share your fullness. You no longer seek approval because your validation comes from within. This is a beautiful point in the journey. This is where you begin to bloom from your center, not to prove anything, but as a natural expression of your essence. Your creativity activates, your vital energy returns, your relationships become more sincere, and most importantly, you begin to feel peace. Not an artificial peace, but a peace that comes from having made peace with yourself. Allow yourself to feel that peace. Allow yourself to be you, without permission from anyone. Here are new conscious affirmations for this part of the journey. I give myself permission to desire what I truly want, not what I was told I should want. I am enough even on my dark days. My worth does not depend on my productivity or my appearance. My soul knows the way. I trust its silent guidance. I choose to live from my truth, even if it bothers others. My integrity is worth more than their approval. The peace I feel is the echo of having returned to myself. These affirmations work as antidotes to old conditioning. They are seeds that transform your mental field, but like any seed, they need care and repetition. Say these phrases not only with your mouth, but with your whole being. Write them down. Carry them with you. Use them when your mind wants to return to its automatic patterns. They are reminders of your new identity, of your deep truth. One of the greatest gifts of the individuation process is that you become responsible for your own life, not from guilt, but from power. You no longer wait for others to change, so you can be happy. You do not blame the past for your wounds. You do not anchor yourself in resentment. You understand that everything you have lived through was necessary to bring you here, and from here, you can create something new. This is the moment of rebirth. You do not need to die physically to have a new beginning. It is enough to let go of the old story that limits you. It is enough to dare to write a truer narrative. You are no longer the victim of your circumstances. You are the author of your evolution, and that changes everything. Once you recognize your power as the author of your life, something deep changes. You stop searching outside for what you can only find within. Carl Jung called this the reunification with the self. It's not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. This truth may sound simple, but it requires courage, because it involves letting go not only of beliefs, but also of identities. It means saying goodbye to old versions of yourself that were necessary, but are no longer real. At this point, the soul begins to ask for authenticity. You start noticing the inconsistencies in your life, jobs that don't represent you, relationships that don't nurture you, decisions that don't resonate with your truth. And while the process may hurt, it also gives you clarity, because you see with new eyes everything that is no longer aligned. This is not punishment, it's awakening. This is where many people are tempted to go back to the comfort of the known. But you are not like everyone else. You are here to wake up fully. And that means moving forward, even if it's scary, even if there's uncertainty. Because behind the fear is freedom. When you choose to keep moving forward, you begin to build a life based on truth. And that truth does not shout. It doesn't seek validation. It just is. It has the strength of what needs no adornment, the beauty of what is honest. Your energy changes, your frequency changes, and consequently your reality changes too. You begin to feel lighter, more you, more connected to something greater. You don't need to have all the answers, because now you know your soul has them. And little by little, day by day, you become that person who not only survives but lives with meaning. Affirm it now, aloud or in your heart. I am ready to stop playing a role and start living my truth. My authenticity frees me. I don't need external approval. I let go of what no longer vibrates with my soul. Every step toward my truth is a step toward my freedom. I trust the process of my evolution. Everything has a purpose. You are not here by chance. You are here because something inside you remembered that you deserve more. Not more in terms of external things, but more in terms of depth, authenticity, and connection with your true essence. And that is the true path back home. And finally, when you have walked this inner path, when you have traversed the shadow, faced your masks, released your wounds, and begun to live from your truth, something sacred happens. Life begins to reflect your authenticity, not immediately, but certainly, because the universe responds to the real vibration, not the appearance. When you live from the soul, everything aligns with the soul. Carl Jung said that the purpose of life is not perfection, but wholeness. And wholeness does not exclude the broken, the ugly, or the uncertain. Wholeness embraces everything you are, your light and your shadow, your victories and your mistakes, your innocence and your contradictions. True awakening is not about becoming a perfect version, but a complete version of yourself. You begin to attract people who see you not for what you do, but for who you are. Relationships where you can breathe freely, where you don't need to fake strength when you feel vulnerable. Paths where your passion is not a luxury but a calling, spaces where your sensitivity is not weakness but power. And if you're not there yet, don't despair. The path to individuation is not linear. There will be days of doubt, setbacks, and uncomfortable silences. But every step counts. Every time you choose your truth over approval. Every time you choose to heal instead of hide. Every time you choose to love your wound instead of reject it. All of that is evolution. Here you are, walking back to yourself. Not to an idealized version, but to the most honest one. And in that process, you discover that you no longer need life to give you permission to be you. You give it to yourself. That is the greatest act of self-love. And that is true freedom. Repeat, These affirmations, while breathing deeply, I am a complete being, not perfect. My shadow also belongs to me, and I embrace it with compassion. I attract relationships that honor my truth. My soul is my guide, and I trust its wisdom. I don't need to be another. I only need to be me. The life you seek is not far. It's right behind every moment when you choose to be you, radically you. And although the world may not always understand it, your soul does. And that's enough. Because in the end, the greatest success is not achieving everything but finding yourself in the midst of it all. Thank you for making it this far. If this story resonated with you, comment the word awakening to let me know you're on this path of transformation. Subscribe to Healing Echoes for more messages that heal the soul and awaken your true essence.